الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Can everybody hear and see? Can everybody hear and see? Okay. So now that I have my coffee, we can have a discussion, inshallah. Okay. Today, inshallah ta'ala, and continuing with the subject of man logic, today I want to talk about misplaced loyalty and helping us to, understand what loyalty is for both men and women. I think a lot of times we have a very misconstrued understanding of, a lot of these terms. Okay. All right. That was weird. All right. So a lot of times I think what happens is that we have a yeah, it did scare me. There was a mirror there, and I took the mirror down because the light is reflecting on the mirror and you guys wouldn't be able to see, so I switched the picture with the mirror, and I guess I didn't put it up there correctly. So anyway, so we're talking about misplaced loyalty, and a lot of times what happens is that we have a misunderstanding of a lot of these terms. These are terms that we've heard used in our homes. We've heard other people in relationships use. We've heard, we've read books and we've heard these terms used, but rarely have we seen, these terms played out in our own relationship in a healthy way. So when we use the term loyalty, a lot of times we're expecting that the person is supposed to, women have a certain understanding of loyalty, and men have a certain level of a certain understanding of loyalty. Would you guys agree with that? And men and women don't understand loyalty the same. Men and women, they don't understand loyalty the same way. Okay? Evidenced by the fact that there's a ton of problems in relationships with respect to understanding what loyalty is and when loyalty should come into play. And a lot of women feel that their husbands haven't been loyal to them. A lot of men feel like we have been loyal. We think that, well, I've never cheated on you, so technically I have been loyal to you. Like, there's many women I could have cheated with, because we always use that as our standard. We say, well, I could have done this or I could have done that, so technically I was loyal. Like, I was loyal. And then a woman is looking at it like, well, you haven't actually been loyal. So that is an indication that we both have two different understandings of what loyalty is. Sometimes as men, let me just speak from a man's perspective for a second, and I'm talking to the men and I'm talking to the women. Women, I want you guys to understand these things from a man's perspective. Sometimes as men, we allow our loyalty, and our loyalty is our allegiance, right? Our loyalty is our allegiance. We align our allegiance to people, things that we feel that we are indebted to, right? For whatever reason. Sometimes as men, we allow our loyalty to be compromised because of our logic. Our logic gets in the way, and instead of, allowing our loyalty and our allegiance to this person navigate for us, we institute our logic into the scenario, and things, tend to go to the right or tend to go to the left. So we allow our loyalty to be compromised. And a lot of times that happens because we put personalities before principles, when it should be the other way around. There should be principle before personality. But the compromising of your loyalty is when you allow, the personality in front of you to cause you to overlook the principles. You guys following me? And the greatest example that I can think of as it relates to this concept is the movie called The Devil's Advocate. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this movie, right? It came out in the 90s. This is a movie with Al Pacino and the other guy from The Matrix. All right, so what happened is that his loyalty was to his wife, right? From the very beginning. His loyalty was to his wife. All right, and then the personality, right? The personality that was in front of him, who was his boss, right? Who was actually the devil. As you can see, the devil is always in the details. The devil is always in the details. Understand that. All right, he's always there. Shaitan is always there, waiting for his moment to catch you vulnerable, right? And it's a stair-step process. Shaitan doesn't, just make you fall into compromising your principles. There's a process to that. And he's working on you, constantly working on you, because we pride ourselves. You know what I mean? Shaitan, he hates the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored man over him. So he made it his life duty to prove to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this creature that Allah honored over him or favored over him is undeserving of the position that God has given us. You understand? Look at that conversation between Shaitan and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. Very profound conversation. Very profound conversation. It's not just, verses from the Quran. This is a conversation between God and the devil. You understand? And that requires its own lecture within itself. That in itself requires its own lecture. This is a conversation between God and the devil. And Shaitan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, that we have honored Bani Adam. We have honored Bani Adam. And Shaitan said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أَرَأَيْتَكَ هَذَا الَّذِي كَرَّمْتَ عَلَيَّ لَإِنْ أَخَّرَتَنِي إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ لَأَحْتَنِكَنَّ ذُرِّيَّتَهُ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. He said, do you not see this creature that you have honored over me? كَرَّمْتَ عَلَيَّ, that you have honored him over me. Right? Because Shaitan felt like, I spent all of this time worshiping you along with the angels, and then you come along and you give this creature, right? This human being, you give him a status greater than mine, right? This is jealousy, envy, which is the first sin. The first sin is envy. Very, very important for you to understand that. So he said that if you give me respite until the day of judgment, I promise you, I will lead every single one of his children, one of his descendants, astray. So Shaitan is always there. Understand that. So, okay, going back to this movie, he's loyal to his wife. So then they move to New York, and then this head of this law firm, who is actually the Shaitan, begins to cause his loyalty to become compromised. And you can see clearly in this situation where he gave precedence to the personality over principle. He gave precedence to personality over principle. So a lot of times when our loyalty is compromised, it's due to that, where we now start to see the personality in front of us. And this happens with brothers in polygyny all the time. Right? Brother could be married to his first wife for 5, 6, 7, 10 years. And then along comes this, PYT, this pretty young thing, right? And all of the principles that your first marriage was founded upon now goes out the window. So all of the things you told your first wife she couldn't do, all of the things that you told her was haram, all of the things that you was so hard on her about, the second wife come along and it's like she gets a pass. She gets a pass. You know what I mean? Like on all of those things, she gets a pass. Because of the personality. So now the principles don't apply to her anymore. Right? They apply to the first wife, but they don't apply now to the second wife, right? Because of the personality in front of you. And eventually, Shaitan ended up driving the wife crazy. And, she looks at him and says to him that, basically, I just, you're not listening to me. you don't listen to me. You know, I told you, you know, this was happening, that was happening, but he couldn't hear her. He couldn't see her, because that's what happens when your loyalty is compromised. You can't even hear the people that actually, you know, should matter the most. You can't even hear them anymore. You can't even see them anymore, because your loyalty has been compromised. Understand? Very dangerous when a man gets to that point where all of the people whose advice in your life matters, you don't even hear them anymore. Because you're so intoxicated on the personality that is in front of you, you don't hear or see anything anymore. Right? You guys following me? So when we start to put personality before principle, right, then our loyalty now becomes compromised. And then after everything falls, we fall flat on our face as men, then we turn right back around and look to the first wife, right, for, you know, to lift me back up after she was the one that you messed on. Like, you messed her over. You know what I mean? The whole time she was trying to warn you, trying to tell you, and you're completely dismissing her. And then after you fall flat on your face, then you turn around to the people that you should have been loyal to from the very beginning, right? It happens with dudes that go to jail. Your mom, you know, the woman who gave birth to you. You know, how could a person ever think that the advice that your mom is trying to give you is the wrong advice? This is the woman who carried you, you know what I mean, for 9 months. Carried you, breastfed you, you know what I'm saying? And she's trying to tell you, don't hang with this person, don't hang with that person, stop, chill out, you're going to go to jail. And then we totally ignore moms. Moms, get out of here, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm a man, you got to let me, you know, my rite of passage, you got to let me do me, right? And then when we go to jail and none of your boys come to see you, come to visit you, come put money on your books, the first person you turn around to is who? The same woman that should have had your loyalty from the door. You understand? And we carry that same behavior over into our relationships and our marriages. You guys following me? We carry that same mentality, that same behavior. We carry it right over into our relationships. Because we allowed the personality to take precedence over the principle. Okay, so there's as I always like to lead with the concept and then bring you something from the Quran and the Sunnah to kind of elaborate on, right? I never like to give you a concept and just speak about it from, you know, a psychological perspective solely or any other perspective solely without including religion in that. We're Muslims. Islam is, you know, our life, and the Quran and the Sunnah should always be a factor in the discussion. Any discussion that we're having, the Quran and the Sunnah has to always be a factor in that. Our reference should always be back to our religion. All right? And if you're not able to find a reference in the religion, then go to somebody who can help you with that, because there's always a reference in our deen for any aspect of human life. Any aspect of our lives as human beings, you can always find a reference for it in our religion. Okay? So, we're talking about misplaced loyalty and our loyalty being compromised because of the personality that is in front of us. So, let's go back to Surah Al-Taha. Surah Al-Taha, Surah number 20 in the Quran, Ayat 94. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the story of Musa and Harun. Now, mind you, Musa started off on this mission by himself, right? Like many of us started off our lives by ourselves until we met our spouses, right? So at that point, our loyalty is to ourselves, right? When you're single, you're by yourself, your loyalty is to yourself. That makes it very easy. It's easy for you to be loyal to yourself. The difficult part is when you get married and now your loyalty has to be split between your needs and the needs of your spouse. This is what separates mice from men. This is what separates little girls from women. When you can now equally split your loyalty between yourself and your spouse. It's no longer just about you. Although your needs are also included in that. All right. We're not saying, leave off your needs, but your needs are also included in that. All right. But you have to find a way to merge your needs and the needs of your relationship. You have to find a way to merge them together. All right. They are aligned completely. Okay. So Musa makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make his brother Harun a prophet along with him. So now Harun is a part of his mission. It's not Harun's mission. It's Musa's mission. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Musa, "Idhab ila Fir'aun innahu tagha." Go to Fir'aun, for indeed he has transgressed. Musa turned around and made dua, "Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli waj'al li waziran min ahli Harun akhi." So he turns around and he says, "Oh Allah," he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for some things to assist him in this mission. One of the things that he asked for was for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send his brother Harun with him on this mission with him. That was going to be his right hand. And from that dua, that made Musa a prophet along with, that made Harun a prophet along with Musa. So they go together. So now Harun's mission becomes Musa's mission, right? That's his loyalty to his brother and his brother's mission. All right. This is similar to what happened to husband and wife. Now, your mission is not the mission of you or you. Your mission is the mission of your marriage. Where are we going? What is the light at the end of this tunnel for us in our marriage? And then our loyalty becomes to the marriage, not to any particular individual. You follow me? The loyalty is to the marriage. So when a man gets in a compromising situation, he doesn't say, "I'm not going to cheat on you necessarily because I love my wife, but I value and I respect the institution of marriage, so I would not tarnish that. I have too much respect for the institution of marriage to disgrace my marriage like that." You understand what I'm saying? Just, it's the institution of marriage and the goals that you guys have set for your marriage. That is where the loyalty is to. Not necessarily to the individual. Although there is some degree of loyalty to the individual. But the bulk of your loyalty is to your marriage. I'm not going to do anything that would infringe on my marriage. I have too much respect for the institution of marriage to engage in that. It's the principle, right? When the woman caught Prophet Yusuf in the room, وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ وَقَالَتْ هَيْتَ لَكَ. She locked the door and she told Prophet Yusuf, "Hey Talek, come on." And she tried to seduce him. What did he say? قَالَ مَعَاذَ اللَّهِ إِنَّهُ رَبِّي أَحْسَنَ مَثْوَايَ إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ. She said, Prophet Yusuf said to her, "I can't do this. Your husband raised me. This is not right." His loyalty was to her husband. You understand? Prophet Yusuf made it clear, not necessarily, "I can't do this because God is watching." His loyalty to her husband. He said, "Innahu Rabbi ahsana mathwa." Your husband raised me. I can't do this to him. There was a loyalty there. The loyalty that Yusuf had for the Aziz, the woman's husband. There's a loyalty that I have. You know what I mean? And I mean, even now in today's time, like, we don't have that type of loyalty. Many instances where, brothers have been, intimate with other brothers' wives, or have been, talking to other brothers' wives. And, even after the divorce, you know what I'm saying? Like, the brother, divorces his wife, and, within a year's time, his best friend or his friend is now intended to the woman. And then we'll use, well, it's not haram. It's not the fact that it's not haram, but in our society, in our culture, this is unacceptable. It's unacceptable for men and for women. And it's like we embrace Islam and lose our damn mind, man. All of the principles that we've learned in our, in our environment, socially and culturally, it's like all of these things mean absolutely nothing. They mean nothing. How are you friends with this brother and, he divorces his wife and then you turn right around and now you intended to her and now you're about to marry her? And then the brother is like, it's a gag order. He can't really say anything because it's not haram. It's not the fact that it's not haram. It's not the fact that it's not haram. The fact of the matter is that culturally, that is unacceptable in our culture. In our culture here in America, that is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And we can't exclude what is known as urf. What is socially and culturally, acceptable. That is not discluded from the narrative of Islam. Islam came to validate what was culturally, as long as what is culturally and socially acceptable is in sync with the principles of Islam. Every time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands the man to provide for his wife, وَعَلَى الْمَوْلُودِ رِزْقُهُنَّ وَكِسْوَتُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that if the woman is going to breastfeed her child, then the financial responsibility of that, because women used to, pay for breastfeeding. So if a woman couldn't breastfeed or whatever, she would hire a wet nurse. The Prophet ﷺ had many. Thuwayba, Halima. He had many wet nurses. These were women who would breastfeed because either the mother couldn't or she didn't want to, right? And and they had to pay for that. And the financial responsibility of that falls on the husband, on the father of the child, right? And this would be modern day child support. Modern day child support. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alal mawludi, on the father, rizquhunna is their provision, wa kiswatuhunna, and their clothing and their provision, bil ma'ruf, based upon urf, based upon what is culturally, socially acceptable. Right? In many verses in the Quran, Allah uses urf. So we don't just exclude what is socially and what is culturally relevant to us. But it's like we become Muslim and then we'll use the sunnah to, remove common sense from the discussion from altogether. When is it ever okay for a brother to divorce his wife? Wallahi al-azim, I had a brother come to me, wallahi, I kid you not. Him and his wife having marital problems, whatever the case may be. The brother, wallahi al-azim, I have never experienced anything like this in my life. In my life. I had a brother come to me and say that if I divorce my wife, I would feel comfortable with her marrying somebody like you. I look at the brother and I said, you have got to be kidding me, man. I said, yo, you're my dude. Like, I would never marry yo. I would never marry her. Period. Are you kidding me? How humiliating is that for a man to go to another man and say something like that, man? Ain't no honor in that. That's not honorable. It's nothing honorable about that. I would feel comfortable with my wife. It was an insecurity. I get it. But the point that I'm making is that this is acceptable in the Muslim, African-American Muslim community, because any other community doesn't do that. Make no mistake about that. We're the only people that do that. We're the only people that do that. But, it's an insecurity because you're thinking, all right, well, his wife and my wife is cool. So, if in fact we do get divorced, I know she's going to remarry. So let me go and put my bid in now. And he says, I would feel more comfortable. You're a good dude. I would feel more comfortable with my wife marrying somebody. I'm looking at this brother like, you got to be kidding me, man. You have got to be kidding me, man. He shrunk in my eyes. And I understand the insecurity, but the point that I'm making is that it's acceptable behavior in our communities, which is why he felt the need to say that, because the possibility of that happening, you understand what I'm saying? The possibility of that happening. And vice versa. You have sisters who cool with their sister. Let me share something with you guys. Let me just real talk real quick. There are a lot of sisters who live in their own self-delusion. And they think because me and my girl, me and my sister in Islam, we're cool, we're besties, and that, if I marry my husband, then I would want my husband to marry my best friend. Those type of situations never work out. Understand that. Y'all not going to be the same best friends that y'all were. A man compromises everything. When a man is now involved in a situation, it's compromised. You're no longer going to be besties or best friends. That's never going to happen. You're not going to ride off into the sunset, him holding your hand, him holding her hand, and y'all just riding off into the sunset, besties and everybody's cool. It's not going to work like that. Once a man gets involved, emotions get involved. When two friends are close to each other, two sisters are close to each other, they can sit from a place of privilege and say, we could marry this brother and he could marry both of us and we would be cool. We would still be best friends, because you're saying that from a place of privilege, because you haven't been emotionally compromised yet. You haven't been emotionally compromised yet. Understand that. You're saying that from a place of privilege. It may not be that they may start disliking each other, although familiarity does breed contempt. Familiarity breeds contempt. So when you're seeing each other all the time and hearing her name all the time, Aisha didn't even meet Khadija. Aisha didn't even, when Khadija died as an older woman, Aisha was a child, okay? Aisha was a kid. And because the Prophet ﷺ used to say Khadija's name all the time, and Aisha never even met her. Aisha said that when she saw Khadija, she was an older woman with wrinkled skin, pink skin, and had no teeth in her mouth. That was the last memory that Aisha had of Khadija. She was a young girl. And then years later, when Khadija married the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet kept mentioning Khadija's name. And Aisha said, he mentioned her name one day and my jealousy came out. And this was a woman who didn't even share the same husband at the same time with the Prophet ﷺ, but just him mentioning her name brought out a whole other side of Aisha. She said, "Limada tadhkura hadhihi al-ajuz?" Why do you keep mentioning this old woman? وَقَدْ أَبْدَلَكَ اللَّهُ خَيْرًا مِنْهَا, when Allah has given you somebody better than her. You don't have to keep mentioning her. And that's a whole other level of loyalty that I'll get to before I'm done. But if this is the case with a woman who is jealous of another woman that is not even around anymore, what do you think about a woman who is actually married to, you know what I mean? I mean, it's not about it. It's not about your husband selecting someone who is not a stranger. It's about a husband selecting someone who you and her have an alliance. You and her have a loyalty to one another and have a friendship with one another. That's something different. That's something different than him marrying somebody that you know or know of. Totally different situation. But I can say, on this platform right here, I don't think that there's any woman on here, with the exception of one or two, who's always going to be the exception to the rule, not the rule, right? The exception to the rule, not the rule, that would be okay with their husband marrying their best friend. Because now the relationship between you and your best friend changes. Because you're no longer best friends anymore. Because now she shares in something that you thought was exclusively yours, and that's your husband. Understand that. Women are territorial by nature. That's your nature, to be territorial, which is why you require from the man his loyalty. Because when you invest in a situation, you expect the same degree of investment. But sometimes men, we are not as invested because we're not necessarily territorial like that. We're not necessarily territorial like that. You're like, yeah, this is my wife, you know what I mean? But I'm out here and I'm doing me over here. But when a woman is married to him, that's my husband, you know what I mean? And she will fight tooth and nail for that. It's the same thing with, with lions and lionesses. Lioness, she will go after the lion for, mating with another lioness. They're very territorial, man. Even though as lions, they know that they have to procreate in order to sustain, their progeny, to sustain their longevity, to sustain their existence. Instinctively, they already know that. They already know that instinctively. And these are primates. These are animals. And they know that. They know they have to procreate. They know they have to reproduce. But the lioness will still, go after him and still be in her feelings if she sees the lion, mating with another lioness. So it's not normal. It's natural. It's, natural for a woman to be, territorial. So no woman is cool with her husband marrying her best friend. If a woman says that, then she says that from a place of privilege, because you haven't been emotionally compromised yet. Understand that. But back to the the loyalty part. So Musa goes away to receive revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's gone for 40 days. 40 nights he's gone. Right? And in that time, Bani Israel, although liberated from the worship of Fir'aun, all right, they have been conditioned to serve. Right? And this is where we come in as African Americans. Right? We have been conditioned to serve. Right? There's a psychological term, I'm forgetting what is used in psychology, but this is where the person begins to identify with their oppressor. They begin to identify with their oppressor, and they actually begin to defend their very own oppressor. It's a a term that is used in psychology. If one of you can Google it real quick, I'm forgetting the term, but it's a term used in psychology where you begin to sympathize as thank you, Stockholm Syndrome. Very much so. Absolutely. Thank you so much. The Stockholm Syndrome, where you now begin to identify with your oppressor. Yes, absolutely. And we have it all day. African Americans, we will defend our oppressor. We will defend our oppressor. Right? And all you had to do was look at the interview with Dr. Umar Johnson on the Roland Martin show. And that'll clearly tell you. Right? The young African-American brother who stood up and said, we're American. I'm American. He said, I'm American, and then I'm African-American. And yes, we have problems. But, and Umar Johnson said, I would expect you to say something like that. You, obviously. Right? That's the Stockholm Syndrome. Right? So we begin to identify with our oppressor. We begin to sympathize. So Musa goes away and then comes back. Right? Comes back. And when he comes back, Bani Israel took off their jewelry, their gold, and they melted the gold down and they created a calf. And then they begin to worship that calf. Musa felt like Harun was disloyal to him because he allowed them to do that. Listen to the conversation between them when Musa returned. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala captured this conversation, right? There are a lot of conversations in the Quran. Like, these are some of the most beautiful, impactful, and substance-filled conversations that you can actually read and gain so many lessons from. I'm a stickler for, substance, conversations that have substance. And the Quran is filled with them. Filled with them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَرَجَعَ مُوسَى إِلَى قَوْمِهِ غَضْبَانَ أَسِفًا. And Musa returned back to his people angry and upset, disappointed, because he saw them walking, worshiping the calf. I just liberated you from Fir'aun, and then now you turn around and you melt a calf down because I was gone for 40 days, and because you've been conditioned to serve. You've been conditioned to serve. Understand? We've been conditioned to serve until you learn how to break that cycle, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Taha, Surah number 20, ayat 94. Allah says, قَالَ يَا هَارُونَ مَا مَنَعَكَ إِذْ رَأَيْتَهُمْ ضَلُّوا أَلَا تَتَّبِعْنِي أَفَعَصَيْتَ أَمْرِي. So when Musa returned back, he said to Harun in another ayah, he grabbed Harun by his beard, right? And Harun said, لَا تَأْخُذْ بِلِحْيَتِي وَلَا بِرَأْسِي. Right? Don't grab me by my beard, don't grab me by my head. Right? So Musa says to Harun, Ya Harun, Ma mana'aka idh ra'aytahum dallu. What prevented you from stopping them when you seen them going astray? Why didn't you stop them? Right? This is our mission. Is to liberate these people spiritually, physically, from servitude to anything other than God. And that is the message of La ilaha illallah. Make no mistake about that. It's a message, a concept of liberation. You're talking about freedom and liberation. La ilaha illallah is the only concept of liberation that we recognize and that we understand. All right? He said, why, when you saw them going astray, why didn't you stop them? أَفَعَصَيْتَ رَبِّي أَلَا تَتَّبِعْنِي. Don't you follow me? Don't you follow me? Don't you follow my command? Meaning, why are you not loyal to my mission? And he said, أَفَعَصَيْتَ أَمْرِي. Are you disobeying my command? Are you disobeying me? And Harun replies, Ya ibn ummi, O son of my mother, right? He saw Musa was angry. And this is also something else that helps, that when a person is severely angry, sometimes the only way to get them to kind of tune in and to understand what you're saying is that you got to find their weakness. You got to find their weak spot, right? You got to find their weak spot, right? You and your spouse had an argument, and you know that your spouse is the type of person that holds in anger for a long period of time, then you got to find their weakness, their soft spot, right? If your husband's soft spot is his mother, maybe you need to get on the phone with his moms and say, hey, mom, like me and your son got into an argument. Can you please, and then put her on speakerphone and go in the living room, and he's in his feelings, and the mom says, hey, you need to calm down or whatever. He hears his mother's voice. That's a soft spot for him, right? That's a soft spot. So Harun was aware of Musa's relationship with his mother, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala captured that relationship in the Quran, right? And he said, Yabna ummi, O son of my mother. He didn't say, O Musa. He said, O son of my mother, right? Throwing the mother out there because he knows that's a soft spot. He knows that's a soft spot for Musa. He said, Yabna ummi, O son of my mother. La ta'khudh bi lihyati wa la bi ra'si. Don't grab me by my beard, don't grab me by my head. He said, Inni khashitu an takula faraqata bayna bani Israel wa lam taraku bil qawli. He said, I feared that if I had stopped them, then you would have said that I separated, I caused division between Bani Israel, and I did not await your word. I did not await your command. His logic. But his loyalty was compromised because of his logic. You understand? Musa was expecting that our mission is to liberate these people. And I left for 40 nights and came back and they're worshiping a calf. Don't you follow my command? Are you disobeying my command? Basically asking him, what about your loyalty to the mission? And then here comes the man logic. Harun said, well, I feared that if I stopped them, then you would have said that I'm creating division between Bani Israel and that I didn't wait for your command. You understand? Man logic. Man logic. So as men, sometimes, our logic is, compromised. Our loyalty is compromised due to our logic. You understand? You guys following me? You following the concept here? Okay, so now let's look at the loyalty that I'm referring to in a marriage. Right? So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all right, he was loyal to Khadija for many years. He was loyal to Khadija for many years. And let's be clear about something. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam not marrying another woman while he was married to Khadija does not mean that monogamy takes precedence over polygyny. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was married to Khadija, it wasn't the time for monogamy. It wasn't the time for polygyny. It wasn't the time for polygyny. This wasn't family building time. This was survival. Think about the Meccan period. This is when Muslims were migrating from Mecca to Ethiopia, trying to escape. There was a bounty on the Prophet ﷺ's head, dead or alive. There was a notice stapled to the Kaaba, to find Muhammad and bring him back dead or alive. This is not the time for polygyny. It's not the time to be marrying multiple women. And maybe that is the blueprint that we need to put into place, that when a man is transitioning from job to job and trying to find yourself, maybe this is not the time for polygyny, because you are going to ruin somebody's life because you still don't even have your life. You understand? You still don't even know who you are. And then you're trying to marry multiple women that come with multiple personalities, and you don't even know who you are. So maybe that's the criteria. And instead of us saying, well, the Prophet ﷺ was married to Khadijah for 15 years and he never married another woman, that's not evidence. That's not dalil that polygyny, we should do away with polygyny. For all of the women out there who are in their feelings about polygyny, let me just say, polygyny is not going anywhere. People have and will always continue to be married to multiple women. There's some men who require that, and there's some women who require that. Understand that. And that's not going anywhere. That's not going to change. No matter how much you are enraged, no matter how much you are angry and mad, nobody's going to take it out of the Quran. And no women are going to see themselves as being so smart and above, the logic of a woman marrying into polygyny. You understand what I'm saying? Like, nobody's going to do that. Just sit with your discomfort. You are discomfortable. You are uncomfortable with the fact that this is in the Quran. It's part of our religion, and Muslims are practicing it. If it doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work for you. But don't superimpose that on everybody else. And every woman who marries in polygyny is stupid. I don't understand why a woman wouldn't marry into polygyny. The female to male ratio in our society has to be between 5 to 6 to 1. I don't understand the logic of a woman who wouldn't consider that. I mean, I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Like, I don't see the logic in a woman believing that she is above polygyny when you live in a society where women are a minority. And in addition to that, African American women are the least likely of any group to marry outside of their culture. Nobody's looking for African American women. Nobody's looking for you. I mean, look around in our communities. There are tons of, Muslims from other communities that, without mentioning any particular culture, but there are tons of brothers who live in predominantly Arab, Pakistani communities, East Asian communities, right? And they dwell in those communities for years. None of those brothers are coming up to them and say, hey, I see you in the community for years. You're a good brother. I want to marry my daughter to you. You would die in those communities before any one of them brothers come to you and ask you to marry their daughter. You would die in one of those communities single. Nobody's looking for you. So I mean, understand that. And I'm not saying that, if that's not your preference, then you don't have a right to that. What I'm saying is that if that's your preference, then don't superimpose that on other people. Sit with your own discomfort. Sit with the fact that you're not okay with that. Sit with the fact that you're really unbothered by it, and it's okay. The Sharia, the legislation of Islam is far broader than, it's far broader than, what you think it is. It's not centered around you. You know what I mean? As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَوْ اتَّبَعَ الْحَقُّ أَهْوَاءَهُمْ لَفَسَدَتِ السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضُ وَمَنْ فِيهِنَّ. That if the truth was in accordance with your desires, then everything in the heavens and the earth would have been corrupted. You understand what I'm saying? Like, the truth is not, alhamdulillah, the truth is not in accordance with your desires. It's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, deems wise. And we say, Sami'na wa ta'na. We hear and we obey, even if we don't understand. We say we hear and we obey, even if we don't understand. Even if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not allowed the lock to come off of our brains to be able to understand the wisdom of polygyny. And when I say nobody is looking for you, I'm not saying that in a disrespectful manner. I'm saying if there was an African American woman in a predominantly immigrant community, none of the brothers are, the sons may be, because a lot of the children don't have a problem with it. A lot of the children don't have a problem with interracial relationships. They don't have a problem with that. They're beyond that, right? The parents are not okay with that. I'm telling you from experience, the family is not okay with that. So when I say nobody is looking for African American women, I'm saying, okay, yeah, the children might be, might find an attraction to you, but the parents are not okay with that. I've counseled situations where mothers have swore to Allah that if their son marry an African American woman, she's not talking to him for the rest of her life. I've counseled situations like this. Understand that. And she could be a good sister, practicing Muslim. It does not matter. They don't want that melanin in their family. They don't want it. Understand that. So when African American women sit back and say, I think any woman who marries into polygyny is stupid, any woman who marries in polygyny is brainless, and all this other stuff, I beg to differ. I beg to differ. I think that's very truthful. I live in a predominantly Arab and Desi community with a few African Americans. Nobody in this community is checking for us. I'm almost positive. I'm almost positive. Let me take it a step further. You have a lot of sisters who, are really kind of thinking outside of the box, or at least trying to think outside the box. They go to these ISNA, conferences and conventions because, it's a more broader spectrum of people, right? The intermingling is real. And their hopes is that maybe I can find somebody who's not African American, and nobody checking for you, man. They're willing to have sex with you. They're willing to commit zina with you. They're willing to commit adultery with you, but bring you home to their parents and honor you and marry you? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No. So that's one thing. So going back to, so you guys got the concept. The Prophet ﷺ was married to Khadijah for 15 years. He married her, but some black men won't marry black women. They want that foreign. Yeah, absolutely. 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 And I've spoken about that, on many occasions. Going back, so the Prophet ﷺ did not refrain from marrying into polygyny when he was with Khadijah because he honored her and he had too much respect for her. No. He didn't marry into polygyny during that time because it wasn't the time for polygyny. It wasn't the time for polygyny. All right? It wasn't community building, family building. This was survival. All right? So we might need to take a page out of that book. We might need to take, it's not that African American women are worthless. Please don't confuse reality with your perception of reality. All right? Come on, this is not, oh, whoa, African American women. Nah, there's somebody for everybody. There's somebody for everybody. And it's not that African American women are worthless. Nobody is saying that. But what I'm saying is that the reality of our situation here in America, this is our reality. So don't confuse, All right, so that's the first disclaimer. The second thing is that sometimes women, and sisters, I want you to pay attention to this because this directly involves you. Sometimes women think that because they are now a factor in the man's life, right? Context, yes, is always important. Absolutely. Some women think that because they are now the nouveau, the new factor in the man's life, that his loyalty to any other woman prior to her is invalid, has been rendered null and void. Sorry, sister, your presence in your husband's life now does not mean the loyalty that he had to the other women in his life is invalid. Sometimes this could mean his own mother. Sometimes a woman can marry a man and come in between his relationship with him and his mother, making him see his mother as no longer a factor, and that his loyalty is now completely to her. Understand, that loyalty to your mother never goes anywhere. The loyalty to your mother as a man, that is not ever rendered invalid because of your wife, this new woman that you married in your life. This woman raised you. This woman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, honored you with this woman being the vessel through which you were brought into this world. That is never invalid. The loyalty to her. And sometimes men need to learn how to balance that loyalty between their mother and their wife. You need to learn how to balance that loyalty between their mother and their wife. And sometimes men, we don't know how to do that. So for us, it's all or nothing. We either show complete loyalty to our wives and we invalidate our mothers and any other woman in our lives prior to her, or we validate the loyalty to our mother and dismiss our wives. As I said before, men, we don't do well with, multitasking. For us is one or the other. Like, we don't work with both sides of the brain. We don't work with both sides of the brain as we would like to, right? So it's important for us to understand that we have to learn as men how to balance our loyalty, balance the loyalty. It's not that we're going to give it all to our mother and then dismiss our wives, because how are you going to have a relationship with her?